Ladies and gentlemen, that applause is not just for this show, Dave's Gone By. It's for the face we see in front of us, the smiling, happy face. And God damn you, you have great hair. God damn it. Look at this. Look what I've been cursed with for like 25 years. Oh, that's right. Thank you. I got to put gallery view on here to see my friend from high school in Hewlett, Long Island, Robert Calem. He's been a journalist. As a matter of fact, he went to the Columbia School of Journalism. Ooh. So he probably gets the Columbia alumni magazines. And are you one of those people like me, like you write in sometimes and say, put me in the back there under the alumni thing. This is where I've written for. Here's the link. Anyway, welcome, Robert Calem, to the Daverhood. How you doing?
Doing well. What is it, 39 years?
Dear God. It really is. We were the class of 1981 from George W. Hewlett High School. And were you in junior high South? Or just so different?
Yeah.
So we may have known each other even in junior high school.
Yeah.
So, well, it's been fun talking. But here's the deal. How have you been? How are you doing? How's COVID treating you?
COVID is okay. I've gotten tested, I think, 3 times, plus an antibody test, and it's all negative. Where I live in Hoboken, New Jersey, is doing it free, and they with one exception, they did the rapid test. So
a rapid test? You're not pregnant. What?
Yeah, they stick this thing way up into your brain, and
wait a minute. Wait, later, what?
Yeah.
What? Why did you do this? What?
Huh?
You took this test where they're putting a shunt of some sort into your head? What? Why?
Basically, they take this swab and they stick it so far up your nose that it's yeah.
Wow. I mean, I've done that with my finger a few times, but never with an actual swab.
With a cotton swab. It's kind of like a giant, elongated Q-tip, and they just shove it up there. And then 10 minutes later, they tell you whether or not you have COVID, and I've come back negative every time.
Well, thank God for that. But I thought it was more like the Law and Order thing, where they take a Q-tip and they swab your cheek, and that's all they have to do. They gotta pull this thing all the way up your head. That's horrifying.
Yeah, it's like a brain. Yeah, it's
okay. Can I ask why are you getting tested so often? How are you around people so much that you have to be that careful?
No. But it's free. Jews like free stuff, right? It's free.
Happy Rosh Hashanah to you. I didn't know if you were Jewish. I didn't make that connection. So you are. You're one of the tribe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So well, I live with my 93-year-old dad, and we started going out doing takeout. We have done the outdoor dining 3 times.
Nice.
We caught up on all of our doctor appointments starting in May. I think May.
All right.
May or June. I think May, June, July. We caught up on all the doctor appointments. So being more active, we figured we'd go for the test just because we're no longer caged at home.
And your dad's been fine too, right?
He's been fine also. Yeah.
Stop slapping the machine if you could, because it makes the thing rumble. There you go. So here's the deal, Robert. We'll get back to nostalgic stuff before you'll be playing our Yesterday game against Leslie Hoban Blake. But how have you been doing? I mean, you came out, knew you wanted to be a writer / journalist right out of college because you went to Columbia School of Journalism, correct?
Right. I worked for 2 years after college, and then went to Columbia for the degree. I actually wanted to be on TV, but I didn't want to leave the New York area right after college. I wanted to start in journalism in New York, and that meant not going on TV, basically, because, it's the major market. So I started out in print. I actually got my first job at an college alumni party.
Well, there you go. This is a man who should be giving to the Columbia alumni.
No. That was McGill. That was undergrad.
Oh, McGill. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was after college. I was unemployed for about 9 months, and it happens. And I went to an alumni party, and I was talking to an alumnus, past graduate. From so he was about 10 years older. He graduated, I think, in 73-ish from McGill. And we were just talking, and he said that he was an editor at a magazine. I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Did you?" No, no, no. Sorry. He said he was the editor of the school newspaper back when he was there. So I said, "Oh, did you stay in journalism?" He said, "Yes." I said, "That's great. I need a job."
This is why Alumni Network. This is the way it's supposed to work. And so, what was your first major journalism job at McGill?
So that was a Friday.
Yeah.
That was a Friday. It was in Manhattan. I went into Manhattan from Long Island. I was living at home, and with my parents. And he said,
"Call me after college." Who would have thought? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So he said it was a Friday night, and he said, "Call me on Monday." He gave me his card. I called him on Monday, and he wasn't BSing. And he said he was sort of a little BSing, but he wasn't exactly BSing. He said to me, "Well, I don't have a staff job right now, but so it was a trade it was a trade publishing company that covered at the time the publications were about broadcasting and special effects equipment, TV and film special effects." So he said he was going to be doing some show daily for something. I forget what he was starting up, but
What was your what did you end up?
Well, I ended up.
You wrote about Hector's special effects, or
so what happened was he ended up telling one of his colleagues that he was going to be hiring me to do some special project so he said to me, I can hire you, but we're not starting until August, right?
Right.
So this was basically what he said. They were starting a magazine in August about consumer electronics, and he said this was I think March, and but he told one of his colleagues that he was going to be using me, and one of his colleagues called and said, "So I know George is going to be hiring you for this publication, but I have a show daily for the National Association of Broadcasters that I'm working on now. Would you freelance for me?" And
I think you said yes.
For like 3 months. So I said yes. My first job out of college actually was freelancing for a trade show daily for the National Association of Broadcasters show. And then after that, they said, "Well, we're not going to start the magazine about consumer electronics until August." So it was like March, April, May. "Do you mind taking the summer off with a guaranteed job in the fall?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I have the summer off and a guaranteed job." "Yeah, sure." So I took the summer off, and
I started. I mean, you're living at home. You got no rent to pay. Right. You know, you're eating stuff out of the fridge. Why the hell? So let me ask you, Robert Calem. I want to talk.
So that was August of 86 that I started.
Yeah, wow, nice. I mean, I was just finishing grad school at that point and not getting jobs in the theater and film industry. So here's my thing. You've written for other places beyond that. You've written for the Times.
Right.
And what is like the proudest article that you've ever written? You know, the thing that you feel the absolute most proud about.
That's an interesting question. I guess I don't know that there's one that stands out that I'm proudest of. I like them all, but I guess the pinnacle was getting on I think it was the front page of the Sunday business section
of the
New York Times. That was probably, so I did a printout of, I did a like a poster.
Yeah. Well, it was above the fold, right? You were
yeah. It was I believe it was Sunday Business. I believe it was Sunday Business. And
was it, and were you writing about electronics or cars, or what was
that was actually an article about working from home and telecommuting.
Back in the day.
Wow. Yeah, back in the day. That was in the early-ish 90s. So I wrote for the New York Times print. I wrote for the New York Times print from 92 to 95.
Nice.
And then in 95, the internet got started, commercialized. I mean, it was started in the 60s, you know, right. By the military. but it was commercialized for the public in 1995, more or less. And then that's when the New York Times started. It was actually, it was called the New York Times on the web, and there was a special technology section that was just at the New York Times on the web called Cyber Times. Because remember, they used to call it cyberspace.
Well, yeah, but
right.
Cyber Times I don't remember though. Wow.
Cyber Times, yeah. So I wrote for Cyber. So I switched in 95 to 97. I switched from the paper to the web for the New York Times. So the business section was somewhere between 92 and 95. I had the front page article about telecommuting and working from home. Well, I spoke to people who worked from home for corporations. It was a feature story about people who worked at like Citibank or wherever.
Now I'm sure you've gone and reread that article many times over the years. It's sort of you had it framed and everything.
How different? Framed. I just had it. I just bought the reprint lithograph from the Times, but I actually never framed it. I haven't gotten around to that yet.
Probably cost more to save the article than they pagined it to write it. But here's the question. Here's the thing. Have you read it, and how different was it in the 90s when you were writing about telecommuting and working from home than it is literally over the past 6 months for a huge chunk of the American workforce?
I think it basically is the same as it was. The difference is that the people I interviewed then for that article were experienced at working at home. They were talking about how their employers gave them the flexibility to do it and how they managed it and what their days were like. Now, those people are veterans, and there are a lot of people who basically are working from home and learning on the fly. So the people I interviewed weren't learning on the fly how to do it. They'd been doing it for a while. And but the concept was still new, but they were part of a cohort that corporations were freeing to do it.
Now, speaking of cohorts, and by the way, we're talking to my cohort from George W. Eulich High School. Do you have any like amazing positive or negative memories of either the junior high South that we went to, or Eulich High School, or most important, since this is my show, any memories of me that I won't remember that you can embarrass me with for a couple of minutes? Or?
I don't think so, but I do remember and I assume you had him too, the driver's ed teacher, Mr.
Right.
Mayhew. Do you remember him?
What, Mr. May? I had him for science. I had somebody else for drivers, but yeah.
He was the physics teacher, and he was also the driver's ed instructor.
Yeah.
And I remember him. It was very cool. He was a cool guy. I remember him telling us to speed up because we were all going the speed limit. He's like, pick it up, Granny.
Really?
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow. I just remember he didn't fail me in physics, but should have. That's because physics go beyond me. And I had it for a damned year. Oh my God, I hated it. But what else? Any other teacher memories from Eulich High?
Any other? Yeah, the Spanish teacher. I remember the Spanish teacher.
Which one?
Name.
Was it Mrs. DeMarco? La Señora DeMarco?
Maybe.
Or Mrs. Sosenko?
Sosenko, yes.
Yes, she's still, I used to see her at the library. She's still wandering around the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
God willing, she's well, she's alive.
Yeah. And we had a teacher who, she and her, Mrs. Lois Joseph. Remember
yes, she taught science.
Yes.
And Mr. Joseph taught, what was he? Maybe science also.
Maybe. They became chiropractors.
I know. It's true. It's true. Yeah.
They quit teaching to go into chiropractic.
And I'm sure they did a lot better.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure.
I think Robert, how have you been in terms of, being a freelance, essentially, you've had certain more stable gigs, but over 30 years, making a career as a freelance journalist. Are there fallow times, or is it generally steady? Have you been able to really live?
Yeah. You live paycheck to paycheck because there's no steady every 2 weeks rhythm that you get a paycheck. You have to have your own retirement and own health benefits.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed, there were better times. The internet has killed fees. The internet has lowered the bar, not just on journalism, in my opinion, but also on the pay scale. I don't know if you were aware, but the Huffington Post, Ariana Huffington, had most of her people working for free. They only paid a handful of people. And
they wanted the publicity. They wanted the platform. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that lowered the bar on pay scale. And Forbes went from back in the day in the 90s, as an example, $2 to $2.50 a word for an article.
No, that's great. $2.50 a word is wonderful.
Yeah, that was great. And now, well, about 5 years ago, I wrote for Forbes. I wrote for a special publication they had called Forbes ASAP.
Yeah.
Technology magazine that got mailed out with the regular magazine periodically. And so that's what they paid. And then about 5 years ago, they came to me, they were starting this Forbes contributor network. They wanted 3 articles a month for $300. And they would pay you a bonus if you got a lot of clicks. So, and then you weren't allowed to say you wrote for Forbes. It was in the contract that you couldn't say I'm writing for Forbes when you would interview people or go to press events. So I was like, well, what's in it for me? So now I've heard, I had never did that gig, but I've heard now through the grapevine that they're not even paying the contributors. So it went from $300 a month for 3 articles to, okay, you'll work for free.
Well, it's not like Malcolm Forbes has money or anything like that. It's not like he can reach into his bank account and pay like $100 for an article or it's just, so how are you as someone who is wading through these waters? And by the way, I do want to say we have a little more time with you because Leslie sends her regrets. She's not feeling too well, so she will not be joining us for the Today, Yesterday quiz. She's hoping to do it next week. We say feel better, Leslie, if you're watching or hopefully just sleeping. So we have you all to ourselves, and we will be playing the Today, Yesterday quiz with Robert Calem, but it allows me actually a little more time to talk to you. So, dealing or doing the newspaper freelance thing and the magazine thing in the 90s versus right now, maintaining your health insurance, maintaining your life, and having a life when everything's drying up. What the hell are you doing? Seriously?
Well, I've got one regular client, one regular magazine that gives me a contract, so I've got that.
Good.
And that's renewed every year. We'll see what happens in 2021, but because the world is imploding. But so far so good, and that keeps me busy. And as I said, I live with my 93-year-old father, so that's also keeping me busy.
In a house that the mortgage was probably paid 20 years ago, exactly. So thank God. That's good. Did you ever, and if you don't want to answer any personal stuff like this, but in terms of marriage, babies, and the end of the world?
No kids, never got married.
Right.
So
is there a person in your life at this?
No. Stayed single. No. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on
probably a little bit. Well, no. But do you go out? Do you have friends? Do you date? Do you do any of that?
I haven't, not in the last
6 months, no, but
yeah, in the last 6 months. But yeah, I mean, I have a circle of friends. I have a social circle. But life is it's my mom passed away in 2016, and so prior to that, I was taking care of her with my father.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been basically with my father, who's healthy. But,
thank God. But, he was written in the book of life one more year. Just last night, God was looking at Robert Calem's father and said, "Yeah, let's write him in the book." What's your dad's name?
William.
William Calem. That's why I didn't know you were Jewish. You got names like William Calem. I thought you were waspy.
Oh, no. And Hewlett High was like 98% Jewish.
It really was. We didn't feel like it because every time we saw a goy, we were like, "Wait a minute, there's people who aren't quite like us." But let me ask, speaking of you, this circle of friends that you have, are any of them from from back in the day, or any of them from the junior high or high school?
Not locally, no. Although I have run into a couple of neighbors of mine here in the Hoboken, Jersey City area did graduate were high school classmates of ours.
Oh.
And the one that I see periodically, but not in a long time, is David Tucker. Do you remember him?
The name. If you showed me, if I grabbed the yearbook
Right.
for the year,
Yeah.
or Patch's 81 yearbook, I sort of remember, but
So he
not
lived
off the
in the
top.
area, and I ran into him at Starbucks, and he actually noticed me first. Starbucks down the street.
Sweet.
He walked up to me. Yeah, that was probably that was many years ago. That might have been 10 years ago.
I mean, Facebook has made this different. I mean, with all due respect, we weren't like close friends, I don't think, in high school. And yet on Facebook, you find me, I find you, and it's like, oh, hey. And suddenly it's like, cool, this high school buddy that would have disappeared
Right.
from my life, suddenly there they are.
Yeah, I've reconnected with people like that. But locally here, the only one that I've seen locally, we haven't really socialized, is David Tucker. And then Andrew Cooper. Remember Andrew Cooper?
No. I mean, names like Andrew, I mean, give me a name like Shlomi Mizovich, and that, oh, I remember that. But no.
Yeah. He lived on a boat in Jersey City.
Not when he was in school with us, because it would have been very difficult for him to get to Limerick.
No. Yeah, no. Up until about a year ago, and he just moved to Florida. But he lived on a boat in Jersey City, the Newport area of Jersey City, which is more or less opposite on the Hudson River, more or less opposite Lower Manhattan and the World Trade Center.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, where were you on 9/11? Might as well ask that question.
On 9/11, I was living in Battery Park City, across from the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
But I was physically that day in San Francisco, where I had been starting a vacation my first vacation in about 10 years at the time. And I'd gone out there for a friend's wedding on the 9th, and I was planning to stay for the week for vacation. And so I woke up and I turned on the TV in the morning. It was about a quarter to 7 in 6:45 in California, more or less 9:45 here. So the first plane had hit. The first plane had hit, or maybe it was the second plane. I lose track of time.
Well, there was it was like 5 after or 10 after when the second plane hit. First plane was about 10:02 in the morning. 10 to 9 New York time.
In the morning, right? 10 to 9. So so I think that's 6:45. That's 6:50.
Yeah, in California time.
I'd woken up and turned on the TV more or less that time, and saw, and I'd left it on the news channel, but when I looked at the TV, I didn't connect, because I thought, I didn't remember leaving on a movie channel. I thought I was watching a movie.
Wow.
I was just not quite awake, turned on the TV and saw smoke coming out of the World Trade Center. I'm like, oh, what's that movie? Wait, that's the news. And then I just kind of started freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. That was the day. I remember. Well, I've talked about that so much on this program. But let's get back to journalism. Let's talk a little bit more, since that's your bread and butter, if you will. Do you generally have to pitch stories, or does the editor tell you? I mean, you on that one contracted thing, or do they tell you, hey, we need a story about this. Please talk to so and so.
No. So occasionally my editor will say to me, I want a story on this topic, but normally what we do is we map out the topics for the year in about November-ish. We map out the following year's topics, because it's a bi-monthly magazine. So there are 6 issues per year. And I basically tell her what I'm going to cover.
Nice.
I do feature stories, features, and sidebars. And then there's also a couple of annual publications to which I contribute as well. But
and you can put your name on these. You don't have to be anonymous, right?
My name is on this. And actually, I've got a very funny story about that. My name being on. So back in the day when I was writing for Cyber Times at the New York Times on the web, the online dating services were just emerging. Match.com in particular. It was early days for Match.com. So I did an article for Match.com, about Match.com for Cyber Times, and how it compared to going out to a bar and meeting someone. Right. And so my name, when the story came out, was on the article. So I was no longer anonymous. The way Match.com worked in the day was they assigned you an anonymous username and an email address there. It was a non-dot username at Match.com was your email.
Oh, for privacy. Yeah.
And that's how you made up a username. So and I wrote this, no matter what I put in for the parameters, alcoholic, doesn't drink,
Non-alcoholic. Yeah, right. Yeah.
None, promiscuous, no matter what I put in, the search results always came up with this one particular girl, a non.tillie, Tillie.
Yeah.
So I sent her a message and I got no response. And so when I wrote the article, I wrote the feature about the services emerging. And then I wrote a sidebar about my experience. And basically I said, it's just as easy to get rejected online as it is at the corner bar. There's no difference.
And then did you hear from non-tillie, whatever?
Yeah, so, and I mentioned it. And actually, the New York Times, whoever wrote the headline, made the headline "In Search of My Virtual Tillie." That was the headline. So, and I was no longer anonymous. So I wrote that basically I got blown off because she didn't respond. And I used her name. I used her
her fake name, her name on the service.
I had no idea what her real name was. So it turned out that her brother and some other guy she had gone out with from Match read the article. And they're like, you blew off this guy, and he wrote about it in the New York Times.
And somebody got in touch with you because you know this. Yeah.
She called me, yeah. So she called me because my name was now out there. And she's like, she told me the story. So we went out on a date. It wasn't great. And I said, all right, now I've got to write the follow-up. She's like, don't you dare. So I never
Well, you just change her name for the follow-up article and just say, this other girl who's also an alcoholic non-drinker and who's also somehow mentioned in the New York Times. It would be actually even weirder or funnier if like a non-Tillie was a writer for the Wall Street Journal, also writing an article about Match.com.
Right. That would have been funny. That would have been
passing in the night that way.
Yeah.
Hey, what's new? You we haven't even touched on this, that you've written, or I assume quite a bit about automotive, about cars.
Yes, since 2004.
So what's new? Are you covering just Tesla now only, or what's the deal?
No, and actually Tesla generally, just like Apple and way back in the day, IBM, Tesla generally doesn't sit for interviews. They don't provide interviews. They're not responsive. They'll send.
So you're featuring more than news. You're really.
I do car tech features, so I don't do news, and I don't do deadline reporting. So I get to research a piece over 2 to 3 weeks, and then write it over 2 to 3 days, 3 to 4 days, and my stories generally, you would appreciate this as someone who's written. My stories generally range from about 2,300 to 2,800 words.
That's a nice size. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I generally do minimum 10, usually about 13 interviews per story.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
see, that I never understood. I'm going to talk like a fellow journalist to you, and learned this when I was working at Playbill and all these other places. This idea of like Rolling Stone journalists spending hours talking to somebody for about 100 words of quote. And I'm like, no, you just need 5 minutes with somebody for the quote that you need, or unless it's a profile, and then you just let them talk verbatim. And even then, you don't need all these quantities of time talking to folks to just snip out a line here. You can find a good line in something they say in about 5 minutes. Or am I wrong on this?
Well, it depends on the nature of the article. In my case, I'm writing about the technology, and I'm trying to make it a broad stroke article to have breadth and depth. So I'm getting into the tech, but I'm giving the context of the tech and the future developments and how it all ties together. And I want to get more than one company in the article. I want to get more than one source, and I want to get more than one perspective on what's going on in the industry and the development and why things are happening certain ways. So in my case, I need to get more than superficial interviews, and I need to get as many as I can. I'm sure I over-research. That's my, that's my problem.
Well, have you ever been researching or working on an article and then it spurred two more articles because you interviewed someone who was so interesting or gave you another idea?
Yes, and I also have left people out of the feature and made them into sidebars. Or a few
so it does kind of work out. By the way, what is you're being? I don't think you're intentionally being cagey, but you mentioned, what are you writing for? What is this place that you are on contract for?
Oh, okay.
So your work. Yeah.
Yeah, not being cagey. Well, I'm not trying to be cagey when I talk about whether or not I'll be cagey when I talk about next year, because, yeah.
But if we do a Google search.
The world is changing. So I'll be less cagey. So here's the deal. The magazine is named I3, little I number 3, and it's published by the Consumer Technology Association, which owns and produces the annual CES show in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So it goes out to their membership, and anybody can get it. It's online, it's in print. You can subscribe to either the online or the print version, or I guess both. And it's a bi-monthly. So my next deadline will be in November for the January-February issue.
Neat. I want people to be able to read stuff that you've written,
CTA.tech, cta.tech/I3.
Right, or just Google I3 and maybe your name and these things will come up.
Right, well, the byline is Robert E. Calem.
Robert E. Calem. What does the E stand for?
Ethan.
Ethan. Wow.
Ethan.
Yeah. And you are Jewish. I'm still boggled by this. This is amazing to me. Hey, let me ask you one other question though, and this is maybe it's only of interest to me. By having written for all these places over the years, how much of your written work do you own or control? Or when you write for all these places, if you wanted to compile things into a book, if you wanted to have access to them, do you need their permission, or was it first rights and you retain all the other rights?
For most of it, it was first rights, publication rights. The New York Times, so the New York Times and Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, I think, a number of publications for which I wrote back in the day were embroiled in a National Writers Union lawsuit. Do you recall that?
I don't, but I'm glad you do.
So what happened was they bought the first rights for print, and then the internet emerged, and they had the archives on the internet. And that was a new publication of your existing work.
Right.
So the National Writers Union said, you can't have that available online in the archives without paying the writers for clicks or views or whatever. And they sued all of these publications, several of which were clients of mine at the time.
Right.
Well, so the settlement was not to my benefit, because they basically, instead of saying to the New York Times, as an example, you go back and figure, and I'd written for them for 3 years, 92 to 95 in print. And it was the print articles that were in question. Instead of saying to the New York Times, go back and uncover all the articles written by each person and make a spreadsheet, and they put it on the writer to go back and figure out. And you only got paid a certain amount, a certain higher amount, if you had taken the step of copywriting it yourself. Who
did that?
Who did that? Right. And if you didn't do that, you got 1/10 of the amount of money. So the difference was somewhere between, it worked out to something like, you could do all this labor and get paid $3,000 one time, or you can get paid like, $30,000, $300,000 if you would copyright every single article you ever wrote for them over a 3-year period, which no one did.
I assume this was before they changed the law, because now your work is copyrighted the minute you write it. I don't think you have to, isn't it legally copywritten because you wrote it, whether or not you have it registered with the Office of Copyrights and so forth?
I'm not aware. I
Yeah.
don't know. But yeah, so that was so how did we get on that? What was the question
Well,
again?
it's also the death. What the writers' union didn't think of at the time was saying this may also, if we keep bleeding the newspapers for a little extra money for the writers who've already written for it, we're not going to have money to hire these guys back in 10, 15 years.
Right.
But no, we were talking just of whether you, let's say you wanted to reprint something that
All
you,
right.
maybe
So
not
I
time.
don't know. So I probably could do it. I never registered the copyrights on my articles. Most of them were first rights for the publications.
Right.
But what I've written, I wouldn't necessarily make a book anyway, because it's about technology and technology developments.
And it changes in
And it changes
every
all the
year
time,
now.
so it wouldn't be of
news.
interest. Yeah.
Do you think you have a last question for Robert Calem before we get into the trivia quiz? Do you think you have a book in you at some point? Nonfiction.
I pitched a couple of books over the years.
Yeah.
Neither of which was accepted. Nobody wanted. Nobody was interested. One was actually on the history of the TV remote control.
No.
Yeah, because there were some really cool remotes that had come out and that were coming out at the time. You've gone from, you remember back in the day, in maybe the 1970s, TV remote controls were actually tethered to the television. Do you remember that?
I don't, because we didn't. Well, this is honest to God true, and we still have this television in the house where I'm living in my parents' house too. And we have a black and white TV in one of the rooms downstairs. And to turn the channel, I mean, so this is genius thinking here. You need a pair of pliers because the channel thing had fallen off. So we weren't using remotes back in the 70s and 80s. We had a TV where you would take a pair of metal pliers and then you would reach for the thing that held the dial on, metal on metal while the TV is on. And then try and turn the channel that way. And we still there. We still have the TV and the pliers next to it. And we ever want to watch it. So no, we didn't get, until we got cable, we never had a remote control, you know?
Right, yeah. We didn't either. But I remember that back in the day they were tethered. Someone sending me messages. Back in the day they were tethered. But then I think Sony introduced an egg-shaped remote at one point. And
yeah.
And they got very sophisticated. TV remote controls got now they're replaced by apps. But back when I pitched it, the first programmable remote controls by a company whose name I forget, which was bought by Logitech.
Oh, the mouse people, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, I pitched that, the history of the TV remote control, and nobody
run for it? Oh.
And then there was a story I did for the Times. I forget whether it was print or cyber, but it was about Fox. Do you remember Movie Tone News?
Yes. I mean, I was before my time, but I watched.
Of it, right?
Yeah.
So Fox, which owned Movie Tone News, it was a Fox thing. Back when it was originally created, and then so they owned the archives.
Was it Lowell Thomas or something? Or yeah.
The film, it was all done on film. The film was getting old and deteriorating, and was on a path to basically disintegrate into plastic shards and be lost forever.
Right.
So the company created a special machine, a high-speed digitizer, that would go through all of these movie reels and digitize it. And they were on track to do it in something like a year. They would complete the archiving, the digital archiving of all of the Movie Tone News archives with this special machine that they created. So I did that story. And I thought it'd be really cool at the time to write a book about the history of Movie Tone News and this story in book form, a greater length, of the digitizing of it, and interview, if possible, any of the last surviving cameramen who were there filming the original newsreels. And I pitched that, and I wanted to do it and time the release for the completion of the digitizing of the reels.
A year later, right? Yeah.
A year later, and it was in the days of CD-ROM. So I pitched it as having a companion CD-ROM with, once it's digitized, you can put these movie reels on a CD-ROM and have a disc that would contain the movie reels to go with the book, or at least some of them.
But they said,
and again, it was rejected outright.
See, I would like to read a book if I were more of a techie kind of a guy. I think the book for you to have written would be about just the digitization process of saving old movies, of whether colorizing is right or not, or how when they restore a movie and they put it on that Hollywood all-time 100 AFI list, of what that process started of saving movies from the 1920s or teens, along with movie tone. I think that would make a pretty cool book, like a detective story and also a tech story. I don't know.
Huh.
That's just. Well, I don't want to write it, but maybe there's your next pitch. You know.
Well, maybe, but yeah, I'm pretty much doing all cars now in car tech. I started doing that in 2004. So in '86 I started writing about consumer electronics, and I stuck with that technology from that angle. But I was always a car guy. I always loved cars. In 2004, the worlds converged. BMW was the first automaker to put Bluetooth in a car as a dealer-installed option after sale. And so I used that as my jumping in point to start writing about car tech.
Because you were doing consumer tech.
So then since 2004, I've basically gotten away from consumer electronics and stuck just with car tech. But there's a lot going on in car tech now. As you know.
Well, let me ask you, what the hell? I mean, 10 years ago, there was a documentary called "Who Killed the Electric Car," and essentially the culprit was General Motors and the big three. But how far are we away from the electric car or something of its equivalent?
Well, we have a lot of it now. Besides Tesla, you have BMW has the i3 and the i8. Audi has the e-tron. You've got a lot of electric cars actually available now, and more coming.
Good.
Yeah, a lot.
So what's the next thing though? What's going to save our planet? What kind of cars are they making that will finally not poison our grandchildren?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know, because even the electric car has a lot of environmentally bad things. The batteries are not the electricity to power the battery. That might not be clean. The battery itself may contain toxic chemicals. You've got to mine for those chemicals to make the battery. So it's not necessarily any better in that regard. There can be some debate. And what do you do with the battery when it's dead? So
right, that goes into a landfill, and that
so the debate can be had about how clean it is per se. I happen to be a fan of hydrogen. I always thought that hydrogen fuel cell vehicles were a really interesting technology, but they didn't really take off. There was a hydrogen-powered Honda Civic you could buy.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's still available. It was available for many, many years. I think you may still be able to get it.
Wow.
And yeah.
So, I do also want to say that there's a lot happening right now in car tech. That's what you just said. So what's really interesting coming down the pike in the next 1 to 3 years that will change the way people drive or experience cars? The self-driving stuff or what?
I think the self-driving stuff is really interesting. There are a lot of changes to interiors that were predicated on shared as well as autonomous. And I don't know what the future of shared is at this point post-pandemic. You were supposed to be able to call a self-driving Uber and have it pick you up, and you might share that vehicle with somebody else, either in the present time or it drops somebody else off and picks you up and drops off the next person. I don't know what the future of Uber and Lyft are post-pandemic. But I think the self-driving is, to me, is very interesting. And it's already here to a large degree with what are called advanced driver assistance systems, ADAS, ADAS. The most basic of which is adaptive cruise control. You know about that?
No.
So adaptive cruise control, which is out for a long time, unlike regular cruise control, which maintains a speed and will keep you at that speed all the way into a brick wall, adaptive will maintain speed and distance, prioritizing distance. So as the car in front of you slows down, your car will slow down or speed up
automatically. You don't have to hit
automatically.
Yeah.
And it maintains. So if you set the cruise at 55 and you come upon a car going 45, your car will slow down 10 miles an hour to maintain a gap.
Yes. Thank you, whoever developed that. General Motors or whoever. By the way, thank you to Robert Calem, who has been chatting with us in the Daverhood about his life, about cars, about electronics, about journalism. He is my high school friend, and he's sticking with us to do our Today, Yesterday quiz. But is there a website where people can at least keep track of you?
So cta.tech, cta.tech/I3, little I, number 3. My articles are there.
Right, but I was also talking about do you have a website for people or?
I did have a website, but I killed it actually. So I still have the URL, but it doesn't pull up anything. It was robcalem.com, and the reason I killed it is, well, there are several reasons. Primarily, it wasn't making me any money, but beyond that, I made I think $20 over 3 years in advertising. But beyond that, there's something called the GDPR, it's European privacy rule, General Data Privacy Regulation, I believe. Anyway, there's that, and California has privacy regulations as well now. And since your website is accessible all around the world, you have to spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that anybody accessing your website doesn't, that the site doesn't capture any personal information about them.
About the user, wow.
The user, and since I don't know where anybody's coming to my site from around the world, I actually had people contacting me. I started a publication many years ago with a friend of mine, and we had readers in China who were contacting us with like letters to the editor kind of thing. And so the World Wide Web.
What are your readers' routing numbers? Yeah, that's what they're
asking. What was that?
They were asking, what are your readers' routing numbers, please? And the 4 digits of their social security? Yeah.
Exactly. So since I don't know where anybody's coming from to see my website anywhere in the world, I didn't really want to have to get involved with all of the coding necessary and all the steps necessary to protect their privacy. I wasn't selling anything, and I wasn't making any money on it. So I basically have I maintain the website URL to maintain the email address for work, but that's associated with it. But it calls up nothing. It's if I have nothing appearing, I have no privacy. The data collection on my site was being, the data was associated with the ads. I had these ads that were served, and so to serve the ad, the company that was placing the ad on my site wanted to see where other people went. They wanted to track them. So if you went to search for, I don't know, fuzzy slippers, they would show you a fuzzy slipper ad on my website.
Right.
So that was in essence an invasion of your privacy, and I had to do all kinds of coding tweaks.
I remember you get websites like that, or even on my stuff, suddenly it'd be underlined in blue.
Remember Facebook out at somebody's day?
And Facebook outing people too. I mean, it's just like I've got so many websites and so many pages on websites. Please, now you've ruined my sleep tonight. Thank you so much, Robert Calem.
You could theoretically get a lawyer's letter from somebody in Australia or Germany that you did your website is responsible. It's just like a
No. Well, anyway, I want to remind everybody that it is a little bit after 11 a.m. Eastern time here in the Daverhood. What's right? And you're watching me, Dave Lefkowitz, with Robert Calem from my high school, and we're going to be playing the Today-Yesterday game on this episode of the show. It's our 764th. We're calling it Rush Hour for Rosh Hashanah. Happy Rosh Hashanah. Now, did you just wave to your dad? Was that the deal? I just saw you wave or acknowledge.
Yeah, I waved him out of the room.
Oh, you push your 93-year-old father off camera. You put the belt down that you whip him with. That's just so, oh my goodness. Are you going to deny him his oatmeal for dinner? I mean, shame on you. Shame. But Robert Calem, you get to play against yourself, as it were, because unfortunately Leslie Hobangley cannot be with us on Dave's Gone By. We're going to do the same thing that we do anyway. We're going to just read you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I'll probably fail, as I said, because in my message to you last week is fuzzy, so I don't know how I'll do it.
No, that's fine. If you get them right or wrong, what I'll ask you to do is, once I read the question, whether you have the answer or not, just hang out for a sec so people can, if they're on, there's a delay when they're watching, and they want to type in the answer or think about the answer for themselves, this gives them a moment or two. But, I'll usually read the question twice. But then when I give you the signal, you can answer if you know the answer. Or if you don't, you can take a guess. So Are you ready to play? It's our Today-Yesterday quiz, the day being September 19th.
Yeah.
Ready? All right. Here we go. It's all trivia questions of things that happened in history on the 19th of September. For example, back in 1893, Lord Glasgow signed an act into law today, making New Zealand the first country in the world to do what? It's a multiple choice.
Oh, good.
Did they allow workers to take off religious holidays so long as they were swapped for their vacation days? Did they stop the hunting of endangered species? Did they build a movie studio? Or did they allow women the right to vote? I'll read the question again. 1893 was the year. Lord Glasgow signed something into law today in New Zealand, and they became the first country in the world to, was it, allow workers to take off religious holidays, stop the hunting of endangered species, build a movie studio, or allow women the right to vote? So give it a moment, think it over. And Robert Calem, what do you think is the answer to question number 1 of the Today-Yesterday quiz?
I'm going to guess that it was stop the hunting of endangered species.
Because they have, I guess, weird animals and zebras and things like that in New Zealand. And the answer is... And do we have any answers? Or
It's the first religious holiday.
Joyce is saying first trading religious holidays. Robert is saying endangered species. No, apparently it was the first country in the world to let women vote.
Interesting. My second choice was going to be the movie studio.
Yeah, no, movies, Edison had the Black Maria going like that year or a year, same year, but Edison did it in America, in New Jersey, of all places. So, all right, okay, you're 0 for 1. It's all right. That's one of the tougher ones this week. We got more coming. Our second question in the Today-Yesterday quiz, 1932 was the year. After a high-speed chase, this man was arrested in the Bronx for kidnapping and killing the son of Charles Lindbergh, who was the most hated man in the world. Don't say it yet. Give people a moment. And I will read the question one more time. The year 1932, after a high-speed chase, this man was arrested in the Bronx for kidnapping and killing Lucky Lindy's son. Who was this most hated man in the, and I'm stalling here, in the world? So hold on to that thought for a moment. And Robert Calem, your answer to the trivia question is?
I don't remember.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Okay. I'll give... Joyce is saying Lin-Manuel Noriega. No, it's not Lin-Manuel Noriega. He's her most hated man in the world. But the answer, I'll give you a hint, is sort of a Germanish sounding name.
Adolf Hitler.
No.
I don't remember.
The answer is Bruno Richard Hauptmann.
Okay.
Bruno Richard Hauptmann. He was executed in 1936, still declaring his innocence. So he said he didn't do it. All right. We got more questions for you.
I'm failing all of them.
Here we go. 1945 was the year. 1945. Today, and this one I don't know if I would know this either. Today at the Old Bailey, William Joyce, aka Lord Haw Haw, was sentenced to death for treason. Technically, he would be hanged for giving a false statement when applying for a passport. But what was Lord Haw Haw's actual offense? Okay, so think about that for a moment. I'll read it again. No, it's not Lord Ha Ha, it's Lord Haw Haw. And the year 1945, right? So at the Old Bailey, William Joyce, better known as Lord Haw Haw, was sentenced to death for treason. Yeah, the sentence technically was because he was giving a false statement when applying for a passport. But why did they want this guy hanged?
I'm trying to think of a humorous answer.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, please. Why was Lord Haw Haw well hung? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
For putting on a bad theater presentation.
I will give you 1 point for that out of 2, because in some level, you're right. Lord Haw Haw was I'm going to give the answer. Do we have anybody there who's...
Any quiz guesses? No.
No. Lord Haw Haw was kind of the German version of Tokyo Rose. So from about 1939, he would go on the radio. He was a pro-Nazi fascist.
Isn't that overkill?
And he would go on and do these broadcasts, essentially trying to get the English people to go against Churchill, go against Chamberlain.
Was his real name Lord Ha Ha?
No, it was Haw Haw. His real name was William Joyce. But that was the thing. He was a propaganda guy. He would get on the radio. He would be Joseph Goebbels in a way, but an English guy with an English accent. He was an Englishman. What was that? Lord Goebbels? No, not mounting gerbils. He was not mounting gerbils. That would be a very different offense. And we call it the Deer Law. No, I don't know what that means, but yeah, that was the thing. He was on there for a couple of years doing these broadcasts that were trying to kill British morale during the war. He escaped arrest in 1939 from England, moved to Germany. He was arrested for being a fascist there, and they hired him in Germany to go on the radio. And he became the Third Reich's best-known radio propagandist, mocking the English and trying to get them to surrender. And there's an amazing broadcast of his last one in 1945 or 1946, where he just sounds completely drunk and demoralized. They brought him back to England and killed him. Which is, if you think about it, he was just a radio guy. He never killed anybody, and he got the death penalty. So, was it treason? It was treason. It's literally treason. Lord Haw Haw. And if you go looking, by the way, on YouTube for more of Lord Haw Haw, what you're going to find is the British answer to him for another guy that they got up there who was English and was essentially mocking Lord Haw Haw's mockery. So it's all so complicated.
Now, I'm assuming the Joyce Theater in New York is not named after him.
Joyce Theater in New York was named after my wife, Joyce. Believe it or not. Yeah, no, and yeah. No, they named it that because, I don't know, I guess they had no choice. Yeah, there we go. That's comedy for you. That's humor. We're doing our Today Yesterday quiz. Robert Calem has 1 point so far, which means you're beating Leslie because she has 0. And you're actually beating all the shoes, too.
What was that?
It's very quiet without the shoes.
Yeah, I know.
The shoes bring a lot of energy,
Yes.
Frenetic? I can't say it in
Yeah,
English.
but this is nice too. This is kind of a one-on-one sort of a Q&A
This is a
thing.
more intellectual quiz.
Yes.
The only one I got was because you gave me a gimme.
Okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. I like that you play fair. You're like Leslie. It's like, these are the rules. Leslie is like, no, you can't go counterclockwise. The rules are, what are the rules? So here we go. The rule is you get to answer this next question. The year 1949, the day September 19th. Late Spring, the first film of this Japanese director's Noriko trilogy, opens in Japan today. Is that a Japanese cat? What is that?
Yes.
Now, Late Spring would be followed by Early Summer and Tokyo Story. Name that director.
Oh, I have
Right?
no
So
idea.
don't say it. Yeah, I'll read it again.
I know I'm an idiot.
1949, the year Late Spring, which was the first film of the Noriko trilogy.
Oh, David
But-
Pookie joined us.
Pookie?
We have I can't write all
Wait,
the names.
someone named Pookie is
Matthew
watching this.
Pookie.
Hello, Pookie. And anybody else?
Yeah, a lot of people.
Oh, so we don't mean to pick on Pookie. We're not gonna pick on
I
Pookie.
can't write all the people. There's
Peter
many.
Piper picked a peck of pickle
There's like
Pookies, you know.
thousands of people.
Pookies. Oh my God, Maria Bill J-Lo's watching. Wow. Wow, J-Lo. How are the New York Mets doing? Trevor, Wendy, Peter, Esther, Maya Esther?
Yeah.
Esther, welcome, and Dan and James, Kevin, Blake, Don, Michael, Janigi, Jamig.
Read this whole strip. I can't write.
I hope you like Jamig. All right, hold on. Let me.
I can't
There's a Mobius strip of people on Joyce's computer that I have to hold out to here to see their names. Sorry, Gregory, Trevor, Jeffrey, Jay, Dan, Gaylord, Sarah, Gaylord again. He came back. Tim, Joy, and Stephen. And I think I can scroll this way with more people.
Yeah. I
And
got
Eileen and Matthew. Oh, Matthew. Wow, an actor there. Giorgio and Roche. Rocky. Pookie. Oh, that's Pookie. I can't read. I need my glasses. There's your Pookie.
Apparently Rocky is joining us.
And Evan as well. Well, welcome to all the Davidians, and Rose. Welcome to all the folks who are tuning in to the Daverhood on this Saturday. We're asking questions in our yesterday trivia quiz.
It's the neighbor's cat with the freaky eyes again.
Oh,
It's the neighbor's cat.
so here we go. It's time to go on to our next question. Well, the middle of this question.
Hey, Robin.
Hey, Robin. 1949 is, well, Robins tend to come out in Late Spring. Late Spring is the first film of this Japanese director's Noriko trilogy. The other two would be Early Summer and Tokyo Story. Name that director.
I have no idea.
Oh dear. Oh, all right, hold on.
Uh-oh.
It's like when a child passes a big old outdoor place with a whole bunch of exotic animals in it. What does the child say?
Oh, wow.
Zoo?
Put them together and you get?
Oh, wow. Zoo?
No.
Oh, wow, zoo.
Close.
Oh, wow.
You get a quarter point. No, the answer is Ozu. Get it? Ozu. Yasujiro
Wow,
Ozu.
okay.
And his films, which are actually quite
You know
lovely.
about you know about the kosher Japanese restaurant?
No, what about it?
Sosumi.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh my God, yeah. Send your complaints to davesgoneby@AOL.com. Ladies and gentlemen, next question.
David, Rosie, Robbie, and Ray joined. It's alliteration.
Rosie, Robbie, and Ray are new Davidians watching the show on this Saturday, September 19th. That is the day in question that we are doing our Today, Yesterday quiz about. 1955 is the year. After 3 days of conflict, the Liberating Revolution overthrew this country's government and sent its leader into exile for nearly 20 years, forcing him, there he goes, forcing him to abandon his teenage girlfriend.
Oh, God.
For 1 point, name the leader, and for the other, name the country. 1955 is the year.
Is it Jerry Lee Lewis?
It's not Jerry Lee Lewis, and it's not Lin-Manuel Noriega
No,
either.
who's the other guy? The theater,
Oh, not Roman Polanski.
Polanski.
It's not Polanski. It's not a film
It's R. Kelly.
Nope, not our kid, but you're in the ballpark because this teenage girlfriend was really
She was
like
a girl.
teenage girl friend. So after 3 days of conflict, 1955 is the year, this liberating revolution overthrew this country's government and sent.
The answer was Shana Tova.
Oh,
Not the answer.
that was not an answer. And sent the leader into exile for like 20 years. He had to abandon his teen girlfriend. For one point, name the leader, and the other, name the country.
1945.
55.
55.
Yeah.
55.
That's a tough one.
I'm gonna have I will think of a hint for this one.
Yeah.
What continent was it on?
Let's see what
Roosevelt? Is that what he said?
he said. No, what continent? Oh boy, yeah, sure. Throw the idiot me a geography question. It would be South America or Latin America. It's one of those.
South America or Central America?
Or maybe Central, yeah. Either one of those Americas with those kinds of people in them.
1955.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna give you a clue on
I
this.
was going to say Cuba, but I don't remember. When did Castro's take over?
I think it was around that time that he came into power.
Right, but he overthrew the government, didn't he?
Right. So it could have been the previous guy. Could have been.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Here's a clue for everyone. This will give it. People were really disgusted by his having a girlfriend, especially since.
It also could have been Panama.
What?
Panama?
Is that your final answer? No, here's the deal. This will give it away, I think. They didn't like what he was doing with these young girlfriends because, they loved his wife.
Oh, Evita Peron.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Peron, Senor Peron, no Presidente Peron.
Yeah, Joyce got it.
Right.
Joyce got it. She got the wrong Peron. And who? It's funny how some people like Harvey Weinstein. This is going to go down. Jeffrey Epstein, and yet nobody realizes that Juan Perón was banging this girl, Nellie Rivas, when she was 14 years old.
How old was she? Oh my God.
Yeah. Somehow when you bring up the name Juan Perón, you think of Evita, you think of his.
You don't think of him as being a dictator. Maybe he's just a dick.
Yeah, well, or using his dick in the wrong tater, I'll tell you that.
He's a child molester, really.
Essentially, yes. Essentially, well, yeah. So there was Juan Perón, and the weird part.
Such depressing questions, David.
Well, what can I tell you? This is what happened on this day, and he went back in power. He was elected again. He was in exile for 20 years, came back in the 1970s.
Well, the younger generation's vote.
Well, he populated the younger generation himself. All right, speaking of dictatorial kinds of people, 1959 is the year. Nikita Khrushchev was having a fine time hobnobbing in Hollywood on his diplomatic trip to America. But the mood darkened when this happened. Multiple choice.
Okay, good. I like multiple choice.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't need to hang on to this one.
Yeah.
An anarchist tried unsuccessfully to stab him on the Walk of Fame. He was denied access to Disneyland. Otto Preminger snubbed him on the set of Anatomy of a Murder, or a blackout at the hotel stranded Khrushchev in an elevator for nearly an hour. Okay, so think about that for a moment. I'll read the choices again. I'll read the question again. September 19th, 1959, Nikita Khrushchev was having a fine time hobnobbing in Hollywood on his diplomatic trip to America. But the mood darkened when this happened. What was it? Was it an anarchist tried unsuccessfully to stab him when he was on the Walk of the Hollywood Walk of Fame? He was denied access to Disneyland. Otto Preminger snubbed him on the set of Anatomy of a Murder, or a blackout at the hotel stranded Khrushchev in an elevator for nearly an hour. Now, take a moment to think, or make a choice, or guess. Do you have any guessers there?
No, I asked if there are any high school alum.
Yeah, I'm surprised we're not getting more people from the Hewlett days.
People, maybe people
Well, they're celebrating the holiday. Yeah. All right, so Robert Calem, do you have an answer to our Khrushchev question?
I'm going to guess he was denied entry to Disneyland.
Oh.
Is that your final
Well, it was
answer?
Hamilton. They wouldn't let him in.
Trying to say no, they won't let him to Hamilton. Are you gonna go with the Disneyland one then?
I'll check. Yeah, I'll go with that one.
Final answer is 2 points for Robert Calem. That is exactly what happened. He was denied access. Oh, his family would have been allowed, but they wouldn't let him into Disneyland.
He wasn't this tall.
That's good. That's very good. And it really that kind of soured the whole trip for him, because he was at Hollywood parties and meeting all these actors. He was having a wonderful time. Right. 1 year later, 1960. All right, this painter made the cover of Life magazine on her birthday. For 1 point, who was this painter of such works as Autumn in the Berkshires and 4th of July? And for the other point, what was so special about this birthday? Okay, so take a moment. Take a moment.
Too deep, too deep.
1960, you're a magazine kind of a guy. This painter made the cover of Life magazine on her birthday. For 1 point, who was this painter who painted such works as Autumn in the Berkshires and 4th of July? And for the other point, what was so special about this painter's birthday? So give it a moment, give it some thought. I'm seeing a non-register here.
No, I don't know. I don't know who it was, but I'm going to guess that she celebrated it in the Berkshires.
Oh, no. Let me give you maybe a little clue. Think biblically.
I don't know.
No.
No.
All right. Okay. Joyce, do you want to take a guess
I
on
don't
this?
think I know female painters from the 60s. I don't.
How many female painters do you know? Guess one or two of them. It probably will be right.
I don't think I know a female. I knew
Georgia
like Susan Sontag, a photographer. I didn't know.
Well, Joyce is saying Georgia O'Keeffe, which is a fabulous guess, but not the right guess. But that you're absolutely in the right ballpark. The answer is Grandma Moses. Grandma Moses was on the cover of the magazine.
She turned 80 or 90, right?
No, she turned 100. So it was on the anniversary. It was her 100th birthday, and they put her on the cover of Life magazine. And she ended up actually living one more year, 201. And she was, of course, it was, I think, 1970. No, she was 76 years old when she did her first painting. And she was incredibly prolific after that.
She was like a folk artist, right?
Yeah.
So like a non-talk photo.
She was selling her paintings for like $5 and $10 a piece. And then suddenly museums were putting them up.
Wow.
Amazing. All right. We have a few more questions in our Today Yesterday quiz with Robert Calem, who's got 3 points so far.
I got 3 points so far.
I know.
Yeah,
We get more questions. And remember, they do sometimes get easier as the years become more modern. Same year, 1960, hitting #1 on the Billboard charts was Chubby Checker's version of The Twist, which is actually a song by Hank Ballard. The song hit spawned a dance craze and led to other songs on the same theme released by Chubby Checker. Which of the following is not another Chubby Checker song? Okay, and it's a
because they're listening. Some people might want to
these are the 4 choices here: Twist Train, Mr. Twister, Dracula Twist, the Mexican Hat Twist.
I'm going to go with the Mexican Hat Twist.
You're going to go with Mexican Hat Twist because that's the kind of ridiculous thing that I would come up with.
Let me try to get some people.
Well, Robert's already given his answer.
Yeah,
It might be right. It might be wrong.
Where are you?
And by the way, I would not have known it. This is one of those I would not have known had I not So anybody writing in? Oh, I'll read the question again.
No, nothing.
On this date in 1960, Chubby Checker's The Twist hit #1 on the Billboard charts. It was an iconic song, so iconic that Checker was forced to do a lot of Twist songs throughout his career. Among them were all but one of these: Twist Train, Mr. Twister, Dracula Twist, or the Mexican Hat Twist.
David, Twist Train sounds like a porno.
And, well, yeah. Well, it sounds like my hernia, like the torsion in my body. But no, the answer is, did Robert Calem get it right with a Mexican Hat Twist? Believe it or not, that was an actual Chubby Checker song. The answer, the fake one, was Dracula Twist.
Wow.
Which probably would have been, just as likely as the others.
It's like Monster Mash.
Right, yeah, that's right. I thought it was a novelty tune, but no, I invented that. There is no Dracula Twist.
Wow, that was a good one, David.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I make them a little tough.
This is tough. It's not fair. Just go with Robert.
Are you a television fan, Robert? Do you watch a lot of TV? You must. Consumer electronics.
Not some. No, I watch mostly the news these days.
Right. Well, what about 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, sure.
Good. Okay, here we go. Let's try this.
Rockford Files.
Remember asking Quincy MD.
Remember, yeah.
Yeah, of course, Quincy was great. Do you remember? This is when almost nobody remembers. Do you remember? I used to get up on, I think it was either Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings to watch it on TV. Doctari.
I never watched that. I remember it used to be on TV, and I would see it in the TV guide, but I never watched. Was it any good?
It was great. It was great. Yeah, Doctari. You should look it up. Daktari. It was about these people who lived in Africa. It was like a safari kind of show, and they were rescuing. I believe they were rescuing or taking care of like the elephants and the animals in Africa. They drove a really, really cool.
You with the cars?
Yeah, it was a Land Rover. And it was white and black zebra stripe. It was a zebra stripe Land Rover that they drove on the show.
I never watched it, but I do remember it being on TV. But this is not about Doctari, nor is it about the Rockford Files, nor is it about Quincy M.E. No, this is the year 1975 is our next question.
The FBI.
Now, was that a show too with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.?
Yes, and that was in the 70s. Okay.
All right. This is a little later though. Because actually I think Doctari wouldn't that have been 60s or?
Yeah, Doctari was 60s, but FBI was in the 70s.
Okay, same era, different channel.
Emergency.
1975.
Yeah.
BBC Two premieres Fawlty Towers, a new sitcom by former Monty Python alumnus John Cleese. The 4 lead characters are a hotel owner, his wife, the hotel's chambermaid, and the waiter. What are their first names? For a quarter point apiece.
I never watched it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're watching Emergency and Doctari, but never saw Fawlty Towers?
I heard of it, like you heard of Doctari.
Doctari.
I never watched it.
Wow. Well, shame on you for never seeing Fawlty Towers, sir. Shame. Hun, do you remember any of the Fawlty Towers character names?
The guy was called Luigi.
No, it was not Luigi. Nor was it Lin-Manuel.
Luigi's a video game character out of Nintendo.
Gustavo?
There was no Gustavo,
Yeah,
although you're on the right track in terms of a Spanish name.
Gustavo?
No.
Ricardo?
Huh?
Ricardo?
No, it wasn't a Ricardo.
That was Lucy's husband.
Luigi.
No, it wasn't a Luigi. No.
Manuel.
Esteban.
Good Lord. Did you just accidentally hit on that?
No, I channeled your brain. I sucked it from your brain.
Joyce got 1 quarter point there. The Spanish waiter, he's from Barcelona, was Manuel.
Wasn't his name Sheila?
No, but you got the first letter right.
Sharon?
No.
Susan?
No.
Sandra?
No.
Sheldon?
You got to think more in terms of a split personality here.
Schism?
No, no,
Sherry?
no, not Cherry Baby. I'm not sure how I can, on any other clue I can give for the wife's name.
Okay, give me more.
Or let's see. Faulty's first name was a herb, and his name was not Herb.
Oh, Basil.
There you go.
So we've got Basil and Manuel.
And Sheila.
No, not Sheila. Remember, name of a girl with split personality?
I don't know. Schizo?
No, no. Sally Field? No. All right, that's not.
Norma Ray?
No,
Carrie?
no.
That would have been a good one.
Broken name.
Well, how do you not know the characters in Faulty Tower? Oh my! It's the greatest, one of the greatest sitcoms ever. And what about the chambermaid, who was played by John Cleese's ex-wife and still good friend?
What's her name?
The actress. Now I'm on the hook. Her name was Connie Booth.
That doesn't help.
She's alive? I'm sorry. Is Connie Booth?
That doesn't help.
Doesn't help. Well, maybe it would help if you got a cracker.
Holly?
Ritz. What?
Polly was the chambermaid,
Okay.
and I'm just gonna go and give you.
My first thought was Ritz.
Well, we're putting on the Ritz here on Dave's Combine. We always do. The answer to the wife question was Sybil. Remember Sybil?
Oh, Sybil, split personality.
Multiple, not split. Sorry, multiple personalities. Yeah, I need to get my. All right. How you doing? You have three points still, Robert?
Yeah.
All right. You may know this one. You might remember this one. 1980 was the year. Released by Paramount Pictures today is Robert Redford's directorial debut.
Oh.
His film about a family falling apart would go on to win the Oscar for Best Picture. Can you name it? Let Robert.
No, Justin put Manuel's funniest moments in Faulty Tower.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Justin.
Nice.
See. Oh, Mr. Faulty. My greatest moment ever is
he was answering. He said Dakari.
Oh, yeah.
And Dracula. Oh, sorry.
So who's this? This is Justin?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Justin. Thanks, Justin, for playing. Yeah.
This Rise of Dracula, and then he got the Dakari too.
Well, Dakari wasn't an answer.
Sybil.
That was. He got Sybil. Yeah.
I'm behind the times.
Well, no. Actually, Robert is behind the times. He used to write for them for 3 years.
He got it. I think he deleted his comments.
Here we go. Released by Paramount Pictures today, 1980. Wow, can you believe 40 years ago today? Robert Redford's directorial debut. His film about a family falling apart would go on to win the Oscar for Best Picture. Can you name it, Robert Calem? No? All right, I'll give clues. All right.
Falling apart.
The
Read it again slowly.
1980 was the year.
Right.
Robert Redford's first movie as a director about a family falling apart. It was an Oscar-winning film. And here's
what it was.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, Joyce gets to steal.
Okay, letter.
Is it The War of the Roses?
No.
No, it's the one with it's Kramer versus Kramer.
It was released around the same time as Kramer. Very movie much like it. That was the one with Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, that
Meryl Streep. That was Kramer versus Kramer.
Right.
This movie, which I think was a year or two later, featured Donald Sutherland, Timothy Hutton, and Mary Tyler Moore.
I don't remember.
Oh, no. I guess the title is pretty commonplace.
Well, it's not Pretty Woman.
No, it's not Pretty Woman. Unless you're looking at my face and thinking Pretty Woman. But no. No, it's a commonplace kind of a title.
Everyday Troubles?
Kinda like a title like that.
Everyday Life?
Nothing out of the,
Casino?
No, it's not Casino.
Everyday People?
You're half right.
Ordinary People.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, and so did Justin. He got it too.
I'm going to throw you a quarter point on that
Justin
one.
got it too.
Well, good. Well done. You know, it's also easier, with all due respect to Justin, it's a little easier to be at home kind of typing than be on the spot. No, I'm not saying they're cheating, but I'm saying, you know, Robert's got a camera on him. It's live. He's on the show.
He's used to it. He's a journalist.
That's true. All right. This was going to be the tiebreaker. So you have 3 1/4 points at the moment. So you're still beating Leslie by a whole bunch. 1911 was the year.
Oh, God.
Born today in, now wait a minute, we went to the same junior high school in high school. We read this. Born today in Cornwall, this English novelist will go on to win the Nobel Prize for Literature for such works as Darkness Visible, The Spire, and his classic novel, Lord of the Flies. Name him.
I remember Holden Caulfield, but that's the
That's a different, that's Catcher in the Rye. That's, oh God, what was his name?
Caulfield.
Who?
Who wrote Catcher in the Rye? Oh, Holden Caulfield was the character.
Yeah,
Salinger was Catcher in the Rye.
Maybe Salinger. I'll give you a point for that.
Okay.
Salinger. No, but this was a different author who wrote Lord of the Flies along with The Spire and Darkness Visible.
I don't remember that.
I won't give you the silver.
Give us a,
Yeah. Oh, no, you know, forget
I don't remember reading Lord of the
silver.
Flies. I don't remember reading Lord of the Flies.
We all had to read Lord of the Flies.
You have to read Catcher in the Rye. I don't remember reading Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. The kids aren't trying to form a government and they end up killing Piggy. Remember that?
Yeah, Piggy was nice.
Piggy was a fat kid. It wasn't an actual pig. It was, you know, and then I got the conch. You know,
it was just like Peter Pan except more graphic.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I don't remember reading Ayn Rand.
No, not Ayn Rand. No. Joyce is saying Lin-Manuel Noriega. No. The answer was William Golding. Was the author of Lord of the Flies and all those. He wrote like a dozen books or so. Yeah. William Golding, basically about how society falls apart when it tries to make a society of itself. So, yeah.
Welcome to El Cheeto Land.
So anyway, in the Society of the Daverhood, Robert Calem comes away from our today-yesterday quiz with 3 1/4 points. Well, yeah, Potato actually got a -4. So you're doing really well, I have to say. So Robert, this has been fun. This has been a blast. I hope I know it's easy for me to ask the questions because I sit there during the week and I'm looking at the answers in front of me and I'm coming up with it all. I know it's much more difficult on the other side of things, but hey.
You're somebody who knows a lot of trivia.
And as Joyce says, I'm a very trivial person, so there you go. But the thing is, it's been great to have you in the Daverhood on the show. I hope you'll still stay a Davidian, even though now you are a friend of the Daverhood officially. An alum of this show, of my junior high school South, and George W. Hewlett High School. Shout out to all the people in high school who didn't make my life miserable. None of the bullies, none of the greasers, none of the girls that turned me down, just the good people.
Do they still call them greasers, by the way? Or is
I don't think they're called that. I probably couldn't get away with calling them greasers. Or we used to call, I didn't, but I was absolutely shocked when friends of mine would make fun of Japs. I was like, what it was a World War II, and what they meant was Jewish American princesses and princesses, of which we had several. And which of course we weren't. We were the nerds,
So I've got another story for you.
Yeah.
Back in my consumer electronics coverage days, in the 87 timeframe, do you remember the industry called it boom boxes? Do you remember those?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There was another term for them.
Yeah.
There was another term for them that I used at a Sony press conference. And I asked a question. I said, what is the price of the, what was the other term? And they yelled at me and said, it's called a boom box.
Well, did you say Ghetto Blaster?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And you cannot call it that now.
I did at the press conference. What's the price of the Ghetto Blaster again?
Yeah.
Food box.
No,
Yeah.
no. It's sort of like if you see a stray cat on the street, you don't say, "Oh, look, Vietnamese food." No, you just don't say that. You can't make a joke like that anymore. As soon as you see an Italian on the street, it's like, "Hey, his shoes aren't made of cement." You can't do that sort of humor at all. No, just can't do it. Robert Calem, it has been delightful having you in the Daverhood. Say that ridiculous website URL one more time so we all get it.
cta.tech/i3. cta.tech/i3.
Little I number 3, to read the writings of Robert Calem, mostly about automotive, but also about electronics and business and consumer electronics. And all the other stuff that you're writing. Please keep us posted. Please let me know. You know how I do the Friends of the Daverhood every week. Please let me know when you've got a new article out. I can direct people to it.
Okay. There'll be one coming soon. The September.
Look, of all people, let's just say hi really, really quick. Stay with us for a moment.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
Bill missed it.
Oh, hold on. Did we? Oh, I think it was an accident. Leslie was trying to get into the meeting, but no, she's not. She's not on video. Hey, just say hi to Leslie Hoban Blake, our friend of the Daverhood. Are you there? Happy Rosh Hashanah. She's gone. Well, anyway, it has been so much fun spending this Rosh Hashanah morning with Robert Calem from high school. I wish you, however many tests that you and your father take, I hope they all come back negative.
Thank you.
And not just for COVID. I mean, for anything horrible and nasty.
Okay.
No, all negative test results, please.
Yeah.
And
I wish the same for you and yours.
And much more writing ahead, and lots more to write about. And we look forward to reading you in and out of the Daverhood.
I will send you a link.
Please do. I mean, especially when you have a new article posting, and we can tell our our viewers, hey, go read Robert in cta.tech.ie.qvcw.LGBTQMPK. I know it's a pain in the ass, but get a website again. Anyway, Robert Calem, thank you for being in the Daverhood, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you and Joyce and your family.
Thanks so much, man.